If you're preaching or you're giving a talk in any capacity, the last thing you want to be is boring. But it happens all the time, right? You've sat through those talks. Maybe you've given one. How does a talk become boring? Well, today I'm diving into the 5 reasons your sermons are boring and how you can change that. So let's get into it. Reason number 1, you haven't explained why what you're saying matters. So first up, let's talk about Simon Sinek. He was right when he said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So a lot of preachers and communicators are skilled at telling people what they need to know, as in, here's what God's word has to say to us today. Boom, boom, boom. We're good at the what, right? But if your message comes across as boring, here's why. Almost guaranteed, you haven't explained to your listeners why any of it matters. So why establishes relevance. For example, everybody knows that they should eat healthy, right? And you should exercise, but a lot of people don't. Vast majority of people don't do it. Question is, why change? I mean, I'll be honest, food tastes really good, right? And exercise is hard. I did a workout yesterday, hard, way easier to skip it. But imagine now you're going to your doctor and he tells you that you're developing type 2 diabetes and you're a prime candidate for a heart attack in the next 6 months. All along, you've known the what. I got to eat better, I got to exercise. But all of a sudden, you've just elevated a why. Why should you change your diet and your exercise? Well, now you got a motivator, right? So that is true of communication. Why should you care about living according to the Bible? How is it going to change people's lives today? What is the why for them? And as simple as it may sound, explaining why what you're saying matters really does matter. So if you want to work this into your regular sermon prep, what you can do is I've got a preaching cheat sheet. It's been downloaded by over 35,000 leaders, and it's step number 9 in the cheat sheet. It's just 10 simple questions you can go through every single week to help you know that your sermon is going to land before you give it. There's a link in the description where you can download a copy absolutely free. Reason number 2, you are answering questions nobody is asking. Okay, I've seen this far too often. Lots of preachers do this on the regular. I did it too often when I was starting out. I try to avoid it at all costs. Okay, so you have an obscure topic that you are really passionate about, but you're wondering, is this going to land? Okay, here's what you need to do. Here's a little litmus test. Simply fill in the blanks on this sentence before you decide to write a sermon on it. If you can answer, many of you are struggling with blank, and it resonates, you might have a good sermon. But a lot of the time for the obscure topics, you don't. If your answer is, many of you are struggling with the rhythm and the frequency of holy days in ancient Israel, or the proper storage of manna, or many of you are struggling with 1st century Roman taxation and coinage in the New Testament, you got a yawner, okay? Nobody wakes up thinking about those problems. Those are real biblical texts, okay? The rhythm and frequency of rest days, storage of manna, that's actually a thing, right? 1st century Roman taxation and coinage. You can go into like Matthew the tax collector or finding a coin in a fish, etc. if you know the stories of Jesus. I mean, those are real things, right? But people don't wake up thinking about that stuff. Now, if you're teaching a seminary doctoral program, you might find some people who are interested in that, even though it's probably still going to be a boring lecture. Okay. Now, what you have to do is you have to create a fascinating message around Holy Day rhythm. Let's say that's your text. Okay. You got to jump back into the first point we covered and explain why. Why does this matter? So let's look at that from a different thing. Because if you're going to talk about the what, you're going to lose your whole audience. Everyone's like bored, silly. But think about this. There are exhausted business owners and parents in your congregation who'd probably love to hear a message about rhythm and rest. So would people who never take a day off. Maybe they're self-employed, maybe they got, they're hustling 3 jobs, or people who struggle with anxiety and stress. You got lots of those people that you're reaching, right? Well, they want to know about rhythm and rest, and guess what? Now you got a message. So think about this angle, right? Because if you're just like, and now we're going into the holy days, nobody cares. But if you're like, God expects you to spend 1/7 of your life resting. Well, now you've got entrepreneurs freaking out going, you don't understand how busy I am. And then he throws a lot of holidays on top of that where you're supposed to stop as well. Now you've got everyone's attention and you've got an anxious world that's forgotten God, that needs to hear the message and wants to hear that message. It's like, is this a cure for anxiety? Well, actually, quite possibly. And here's a principle you can use that I've used consistently with my teams over the years. You got to deliver what people need to hear. They do need to hear about Old Testament rhythms or about, the Roman Empire and the first disciples. So they need to hear that. But you got to deliver what people need to hear in a way that they want to hear it. That's the secret to gaining and keeping an audience. Often simply rephrasing the question and uncovering the felt need underneath is going to help you get to where you need to go on an issue. Okay, number 3, you have not described a gripping problem. So we've hinted at this already, but the problem with a lot of communication is that it doesn't start with a problem. Too often, communicators or writers just kind of start and you meander into the message and all that. Your audience is asking one question, okay? This is the invisible question they're asking when they're sitting there, when they're watching through the lens of a camera. They're going, why should I bother? Why should I listen? Why should I tune in? I got problems to solve. You're not helping me. And that happens in the first 30 seconds. So what you want to do is you want to counter that explicitly. You want to know that that is exactly what's at stake. So I almost always start any talk I'm doing describing a problem that people face at work, at home, maybe in their relationship with God, their relationships with other people, in their marriage. Think about this. What did I do with this video, right? Well, if you're preaching or giving a talk in any capacity, the last thing you want to be is boring, but boring happens all the time. How does a talk become boring, right? You know what that is? That's a hook, right? Hopefully you're like, oh, I think this video is for me. That's what you want to do with your message. So what you want to do is be able to describe the problem in detail. So you might say something like, you're so frustrated with God because he says he's a God of love, but you read the Old Testament, violence all over the place, or, the world looks like a dumpster fire. How is God even in this? I can't trust a God like that. So actually you want to say that at the beginning of your message. And people are like, wait a minute, you're a preacher, you're not allowed to say that. That's what people say in the comments on YouTube videos. That is not what communicators say. That's not what preachers say. But now you've got their attention because they're like, that's interesting. Now, if you really want people to drill down further, take the next step, make the problem worse. So you state the problem, then you make it worse. You describe it in such detail that people are pretty sure there's no solution to it. In other words, you put yourself into a trap, right? So what you want to do, you might quote an atheist. You might say, this leading atheist says this about God, and everybody goes, yeah. And you're like, so what do we do with that, right? You want to explain that God maybe seems cruel or mean or angry, or you want to tell a story where somebody was really crushed by a circumstance in their life where they thought God couldn't possibly be in this. And so what you're doing now is you're raising the tension that people feel in their lives. Maybe it's the tension of never being able to afford a home, or the third breakup they've had in 3 years. And they're like, God, seriously, you want me to get married? Are you kidding? Or maybe you're talking about a marriage that's hanging on by a thread. And now you're asking the question, God is good? God is loving? Really? So what you've done now is you've stated the problem, you've made it worse, and you've raised the tension. At this point, everybody, like even the skeptic, is like, okay, how's she going to get out of this? How is he going to get out of this? This is a mess. And then, of course, you get out of it. You pose questions that you can answer. So then you go to your main point, which could be explaining how, for example, in a message on suffering or evil or that kind of thing, how God absorbed the pain of the world and your pain when he went to the cross in love. One of the ways I've phrased it over the years is I'm like, look, when you look at the cross and you see Jesus hanging there, what do you assume? God is losing. This was all a joke. This was all mistaken. But actually, God was winning. right? The cross is the center of the Christian faith. So maybe you're there right now and you're like, God is losing. What if God is winning? What if this isn't the end of the story? What if somehow all of this is working together for the good of those who love God in a way you can't see? And then you can take it back to some things that look terrible at the time, but maybe you see a redemptive purpose in it. So the idea here is to try to uncover and bring to light every objection that people have to the main point you're trying to make. You want to say it so that they're not going home saying, well, she didn't deal with this, all right? And when you do that, they're going to lean in because they're fascinated now, and you're going to try to get out of a problem that they don't know how to solve, but you're going to do it. Okay, reason number 4, you don't personally own the message. So there was a season when being a cool church was enough. You just had to have the right lights, the right LED screen, the right band, the right songs. But here's what's happened. People are sick of slick. They're suspicious of polish. And what we're seeing, and we've been seeing this for 10 years now, is authenticity is the key. People are looking for real, not rehearsed. So you want to own your message. People want to know, is this coming from inside of you? It should emanate from the core of who you are. So even what I've said so far, right? If you don't state a problem you can't get out of, but if you know how to get out of it, because you've been down that road and you've studied that topic, I mean, go there. Own your message. People want to know you believe what you're saying, and it should emanate from the core of your being. So if you truly believe in what you preach, it will resonate so much more with your audience. Now, I got a little hint for you. The earlier you start your sermon writing, the more the message becomes a part of who you are, the more it internalizes, right? So if you can start writing your messages a week or a month in advance, it's going to sound way more authentic. Not only goes into your long-term memory, but it kind of seeps into your pores and it flows out. I've been working on this content for years, and this video is a recent expression of it. But I really believe this stuff, and hopefully you see it, okay? Reason number 5. You are relying too heavily on your notes. So let's talk about reliance on your notes, right? In public speaking, engagement drops significantly when the speaker reads from a script. It comes across like a press release, right? Some politician going, we want to issue this apology for the acts that we did, and my lawyers wrote, It gets so wooden, you might as well be, reading the terms and conditions on your iPhone. All right. Remember, reading from your notes doesn't mean you're insincere. Some of you are like, I don't know how to preach without using notes, right? I get it. It doesn't mean that you're insincere, but it does mean it's going to feel like people think you might be insincere if you're reading from a manuscript. And listen, I started as a manuscripts preacher. Okay, I did. So I was like, every word was on the page. And in funerals, I still use manuscripts for the liturgy, like for the order of service. But I try to talk from the heart. I have notes, I prepare, but I try to speak from the heart. So it doesn't mean that you're insincere. You're just going to come across that way. So to truly connect, understand your message deeply enough that you can share it conversationally. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, this is the best advice I ever got on this topic from Tom Long at Princeton. Don't memorize your talk. Understand it. Just understand it, right? So you don't think about your everyday conversations. You don't memorize them. What am I going to say to my wife? What am I going to say to my neighbor? What am I going to say to my coworker? Okay, I got it. Like maybe if it's super conflicted, you're going to do that. But every day, all of your conversations are spontaneous because you understand them. Oh, this is what I want to say. I want to ask him, hey, can I borrow your lawnmower? Okay, that's what you want to ask. You're not like super rehearsed. You're just going to ask him, hey, do you mind if I borrow your lawnmower? Mine broke and I'm getting it fixed. So that's what you want to do with your next talk. And if you start early, that's really going to help. You just have to understand it. If you understand it, you can deliver it. You can always talk about things you understand. So if you find your sermons are falling flat, your message isn't clear, or you really want to hone your preaching skills, I got a course. I developed it with Mark Clark. We are very different preachers, but we both reached a lot of unchurched people, and we would love to teach you how to transform how you write. We cover like from the very beginning, prep, right through to delivery and review and evaluation. I show you how to give a talk without using notes, how to develop a killer bottom line that people remember literally for a decade or more. This course is going to lead you through every single aspect of the art of preaching. Guess what? That's why we call it the art of preaching. 3,500 plus pastors have used it to preach more effectively, and that can be you too. So check it out by clicking the link in the description of this video, or you can go to theartofpreachingcourse.com. Don't wait another Sunday. You can get started today. So let's wrap up. If you want to be a better communicator, take a step back and use these 5 tips to re-engage your audience. Remember, the goal is to connect, to inspire, and ultimately to lead them closer to Jesus. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe, and maybe share it with someone who could use these insights.